Composing Gloves here, and today we're checking out Zone Matrix. It is a Kontakt multi-script, meaning it's a script meant to interact with instruments. And the way you open up these kinds of scripts is once you install them in the correct directory, which that's all described in the manual, you actually can load up a bunch of instruments and you hit this KSP up here. It brings up the Zone Matrix, and then from here you can have it interact with the instruments that you've got. Or you could load it up first. That's what I did. So I have here this quick example just to sort of show you what it does. It's basically a way of very quickly layering everything together. So as you can see here, I have 4 instruments, and if I just play this right now, if I play some low notes, only the low ones will trigger. If I play some high notes, this is a note that's in the middle, so all of them trigger, and if I play a really high note, it only triggers the high stuff. So we can create some very dynamic performance ensembles this way with just this alone. And we're going to get into some more of the details as we go. But let's just go ahead and hear a little bit of an action. All right, so there's a bit of it in action, and you notice that in the middle, it swapped places. If you actually set up scenes, you can have entirely different scenes, and you could even have these talking to different instruments depending on how many you want to load. And I mean, you can really just get pretty dang crazy with this. So what I think would be really explanatory is if I just go ahead and set up a quick ensemble with you, and we create a patch just to sort of show you all the nifty things you can do. There's already a really extensive walkthrough video. If you get lost using this, it's totally your own fault. The manual is amazing, and the walkthrough video is phenomenal. Every question you could possibly have is answered there. So we're just going to go ahead and get creative with this thing. So let's go ahead. Let's open up a new instance of Kontakt. So here we go. We got a new one. And I'm in a little bit of a weird position because normally I've got my keyboard facing a different way. And so I'm actually really far away from the screen. So everything's really tiny to me. So let's see how we go with this. So we're going to go ahead and go to KSP, and then we're going to load up a script. If you've installed it correctly, it should show up as a user script. You hit Zone Matrix, boom, there it is. Now I don't want to see this while I'm loading instruments up, so let's go ahead and close this. Let's find some interesting instruments to sort of get going together. Thinking maybe let's do something very good as a basic instrument. Let's do some clarinets, shall we? So we will load up the clarinets A2 first. So this is going to be my first instrument. Let's layer it with something. Let's see what we have in the bells here. We'll go ahead. We'll toss a marimba on there. That sounds kind of cool. And let it load. The glorious loading wait time. And then let's go ahead and see here. I don't want to go pads because I'm going for more of sort of a percussive kind of a thing. This will have some nice sustain, the clarinets will. Let's toss on one more instrument that I think would be kind of cool. Maybe just a regular old piano would be fine. So we're going to go ahead and go with the piano. So we've got these instruments. I'm just going to leave them as they are. And I like to work and load things up with the KSP script closed, which if you've never worked with a multi-script, if you load it up, you're going to try and move up and down, and you'll notice only this moves up and down. So that's something that can be a little bit like, hey, how do I close this? So you can close and open this at will. Okay, so we're going to activate these ranges. So we're going to go ahead and click these. So these are 3 instruments, and they have a mixer here that you can actually use. And if you double click down here on the strip, you can actually type what everything is and save this whole thing as one giant Kontakt preset, which is pretty cool. But we're going to come over to the key range, and we're going to set ranges for these various things. So if you want to just solo an instrument, you can actually hold shift and click one of these, and you can just solo it. So the clarinet only goes from this note to, where's the top note? This note anyways, right? So what I'm going to do for the low note, there's a way to set them both at the same time, but I can't remember it at this second. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit this. What is this? A D? Oh, that's not the right D. Let's go a D lower. All right. And then for the upper, it's going to bring itself out anyway. So don't really care about that. But we're just so we see visually what the clarinet's doing. For what's our next instrument that we have here? We have another one. Oh, our marimba. The marimba should go all the way across. I think let's lose the marimba on the very high end of what's going on here. So we're going to come in here and turn the marimba on. And on the marimba, so instead of changing the key ranges by alt-click and then push a note, you can also just hold, I believe it is Control or it might be Shift. And it's Shift. You can bring it down by octaves. So let's go ahead and shave off a couple octaves here. Maybe we'll have an octave where they overlap. Sure, why not? And this last one's the piano. I definitely want the piano across the whole range. That sounds fine to me. This will be our first scene. Okay, so something that we might want to do with the mod wheel is use this mod wheel, right? So, but we don't want it to affect everything that's going on. So if you actually come into the CC filters, you can remove certain parameters from certain instruments. So I only want it to affect the clarinet. So I'm just going to turn it on for the clarinet. So now only the clarinet is affected by the mod wheel. And you can do this for some CCs of your choice or the common CCs that you see here. Another really useful thing is maybe we only want the piano to come in when we're playing a soft note. So we can actually set a velocity range, which is something I'm actually going to do now. So we're going to bring this down. We only want the piano for notes below, let's say somewhere around 80. And this could be useful also for separating instruments. So maybe we wanted to play the piano really soft. Only trigger it when we play like super soft. So if I play a loud note, it's not going to trigger the other instrument. And so maybe for this, maybe for the piano, we'll go ahead and say, okay, for the clarinet, let's go ahead, let's make this only responsive to higher velocities. And another nice thing you can do here is just for the sake of example, and let's do this with the piano actually. If you have a very low, like you only want to trigger it for these lower velocity keys, but you want it to sound louder, you can actually offset that here. So this will actually add an offset to whatever you push. So if you push like a really soft note, it'll add 101, and if you push a very loud note, it's going to add 101. So I got to play super soft. I should probably raise this range a bit. That's a bit much for the keyboard I'm on. All right, let's see here. So some softer notes. But you see, they sound really loud, even though I'm pushing the keyboard really softly. And so if we go ahead and remove this, and you can also control click to reset stuff. So you can separate things out velocity wise, but it doesn't have to be a deciding factor on the actual instrument's velocities themselves. You can also set a constant velocity if you want to. And finally, we've got the mixer, pretty self-explanatory, but we've got ourselves a basic setup here with some instruments. Let's go ahead and set up another round, and maybe on the next set of instruments. So this is scene 1, and we can actually set a key switch for this. I'm going to make this the bottom key switch of my range here of my keyboard. So I'm just going to hit the lowest note. And so we've set that range. Very fast way to do it. You could also drag up and down. What we're going to do is let's add another instrument, and let's go to scene 2. So scene 2. Let's have everything on, the whole shebang. Maybe not the clarinet. Maybe we'll lose the clarinet for this one. And then we'll add another instrument, maybe something with some bells in it. Do I have bells in my quick load? Let's go ahead, let's close this while loading instruments. And sure, let's go for the Celeste. This is a Kontakt instrument just in the standard Kontakt library, so everyone should have this. And we're going to go ahead, open up the Zone Matrix, turn it on, And now for scene B, we need a keynote to trigger it if we plan to switch between them. I like to go up on the white keys. So to set that, we're just gonna alt click this and just push, I'm gonna push B. So now we've got A1 is scene 1. We can play some stuff there. And then maybe we're going along for this clarinet. Let's go ahead and let's limit this clarinet to a lowest note of, let's say, up here. So we're going to keep the clarinet playing these higher notes. And for the velocity, I'm going to go ahead and undo that velocity change that I did on the clarinet. I'm not going to use the velocities for this particular case. There are cases where it's a much better idea if you have, for example, instrumentations like a whole bunch of woodwinds. And then you want certain woodwinds when it's soft and certain ones when it's loud. You can create some really dynamic patches that way that you could just load up and immediately begin to do orchestral writing. But for this, I think I'd rather have this. Also, this is a big open up for if you want a color palette, but you know how all the instruments are separated because, you know, they're made by different companies. This is a great way to combine libraries into single presets and load them up and use them like super fast. So I'm going to start building up my own little palette, so to speak, because yeah, this answers a lot of those types of problems, which is a great thing. I'm going to set this higher. And we're going to give the piano, we're going to have the piano come down a bit. So I'm going to shift click, bring it down. Bring the marimbas upper range up a little bit. And this is what we're going to roll with. So let's just go ahead. We've played some low notes here. And for the marimba real quick as well, we're also going to just give it a big boost. All right, so now if we play some low notes. Add the clarinet in. Then maybe we change scenes for the next part, and this is going to have no clarinet. And away you go. So very fast, very fun. If you do any kind of live performance and you're a keyboardist, this is an amazing asset to add to your library. If you do any sort of things with any sort of thing with Kontakt at all, this is a great way to create very dynamic layered patches that are super customized. And that is Zone Matrix. If you have any questions about anything that you could do with it, feel free to let me know. The developer's walkthrough video is amazing. I'd really recommend you go ask your questions under his video if it's of a technical nature, but pretty cool thing. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos, and have a blessed day.